Hey Jonathan, what is Bruce Wayne's and Tony Stark's best gear?
Probably the Batmobile. And I guess the Iron Man armor if you're into that sort of thing.
Wrong! The best equipment for each of them is their sleek men's fashion gear. Those guys are always styling with their ties, cufflinks, and money clips. If only I could be that suave.
Well, interesting you should mention that, Joseph, because this podcast is sponsored by Cufflinks.com, where you can buy all sorts of men's accessories from Marvel and DC that Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne would totally rock. Items like Green Lantern cufflinks or a Black Panther tie. They have an incredible selection of comics apparel accessories, and if you use code DUEL15 on Cufflinks.com, you get 15% off your total order with no minimum purchase from now until the end of 2020.
Yeah, use that code, guys. In all honesty, their products are amazing. And don't forget, they're helping us run a giveaway where 2 lucky listeners will win either a Batman silk tie or an Iron Man paisley tie. To enter, all you have to do is visit cufflinks.com, check out the Marvel and DC sections, and send this podcast a message about what you think is the coolest product they have. If it's a Marvel product, Marvel gets a point. If it's a DC product, DC gets a point. And the site with the most points by November 15th will declare the most stylish out of the companies.
As always, you can reach out to us via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, the links to which are in our episode description. Thanks to Cufflinks.com for helping us set up this promo, and remember, you get 15% off anything in their store with the promo code DUEL15. Visit their site during this episode.
On with the show.
Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And in this episode, we will be reviewing DC's latest collection of animated shorts that they've released under the headline film, Batman: Death in the Family. We are reviewing the digital release of this film, not the Blu-ray, 4K Ultra HD, or DVD physical versions, which is an important distinction, because the physical version is DC's very first interactive animated movie. So we didn't get the full interactive experience with the digital version, but there's still a lot to talk about in our spoiler review, which we'll get to later on in the episode.
Yeah, the branching storyline consisted of 4 different parts. One of them, which was a rehash of Under the Red Hood, so I'm glad that we got to review that in our last review. The other 4 shorts included Sergeant Rock, Adam Strange, The Phantom Stranger, and Death from the Sandman universe.
Yeah, so there's a lot of content to review, but before that, we're going to break down the comic book movie news from the past week, including Michael B. Jordan producing a Static Shock film. We'll also be talking about how Xochitl Gomez has been cast as America Chavez for Doctor Strange 2, allegedly. And we'll be talking about how Sarah Shahi has been cast as Isis in the Black Adam film.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
We want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Jay Moldenhauer Salazar for not only reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, but also becoming our newest patron on Patreon.
Yeah, we really appreciate the support on both platforms. Thank you so much, man. And everyone else, please subscribe to our show if you haven't already. And if you have, please help us grow our podcast audience by giving us a rating or a review, like Jay, on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or by sharing us with your fellow DC and Marvel fans. But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on social media that Jonathan draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question, coming off the news that the Green Lantern show has been greenlit for HBO Max, was, who is your favorite Green Lantern and why? We got a lot of answers this week, and really there's no right answer. All of the Green Lanterns are great, but we have a few answers that we picked out for honorable mention. The first one goes to Richard McGrew, who said that Chip is the best Green Lantern because he's a squirrel. That's it. It makes him way more interesting than any of the Earth Green Lanterns. And I gotta say, I have a soft spot in my heart for Chip. We actually pit Chip in a duel against Rocket Raccoon for our very first holiday charity episode, the first year of this podcast. And his tale is so tragic, yet so heroic. He's great. Definitely one of the best.
Our second honorable mention goes to Michael Haggerty, who said his favorite Green Lantern was Guy Gardner, because like Michael, he's the no-filter asshat that everyone loves to hate. That's totally true.
Yeah. I mean, not for Michael necessarily, but definitely Guy Gardner.
No, for Michael as well. No, I'm just kidding. He said that Guy is honestly closest to an actual representation of what a human with that kind of power would probably act like. Plus, Guy as a Red Lantern was a badass.
I actually really liked him as a Red Lantern. Part of me really wished that they would have taken all of the Earth Green Lanterns and split them among the different emotional spectrum colors, like permanently. Like a permanent Red Lantern Guy Gardner, I think would be really interesting. You know, having to deal with that inner struggle. Didn't happen, but yeah, he was great as a Red Lantern, I thought. Our final honorable mention goes to Jeff Miles Jr., who said that his favorite was Simon Baz because he's so badass. He carries a gun on him for actual protection, even though he has a Green Lantern ring, and he feels that he's like the Red Hood, but also with good intentions. Jeff also says that you gotta love it when people of different backgrounds, like Simon, who's a Muslim, are put in positive roles in society. To me, one of the greatest things about the Green Lantern Corps and about being a Green Lantern in general is that anyone could be a Green Lantern. You know, if they're brave, if they're courageous, if they have the willpower, anyone from any background could wield the ring.
And that brings us to our no prize winner. But first, I want to give a quick thank you to everyone who engaged with us this past week and gave us an answer, including Shane Habazine, Son of Arhumand, Spiderbat6, Miggy Madden-Geehan, Dustin Balcom, Bruce Flansburgh, Dorian Tyree, John Speas, and Alden Kirchner. Thanks for reaching out.
But the winner of this week's No Prize is Adam Speas for his answer of John Stewart. Not just because of the cartoon, but because John gave us a great example for what a human can be. He was calm, collected, and tactical. Adam really appreciates the demeanor of John Stewart. And like we mentioned earlier in the previous honorable mention, John brought some much needed diversity to the Justice League roster, which Adam believes left an impression that can't be understated.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of John Stewart. We had quite a few people give the answer of John Stewart, including Miggy Madden-Geehan, who won last week's No Prize. He also mentioned how John Stewart was an architect by trade, so that his constructs are built from like the ground up.
Yeah, according to Jeff Johns, when he's building his constructs, you can actually see like the skeleton and architecture of his designs being built.
And compare that to Kyle Rayner, who's an artist by trade, whose constructs appear much more artistically, like they're sketched out and then filled in. Of course, Kyle is a lot more creative with his construct work. I've always liked Kyle Rayner. Hal Jordan, of course, he's the Silver Age OG. You know, you got to give him props. I always liked Jessica Cruz's origin story, how she was like the Green Lantern who wasn't fearless, who was like full of fear, but was able to overcome that. It's just a bunch of great characters.
Yeah, for sure. Congrats once again to Adam Speas for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on in this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week.
And now that that's done,
on to the news. Okay, so back in August, when they had the DC fandom event, there was this big secret panel that everyone was wondering what it was going to be. It turned out to be an announcement that DC was bringing back Milestone Media, a diversity-focused imprint co-founded by Dwayne McDuffie and the home to popular characters such as Static Shock and Icon, among others. Now, in that panel, filmmaker Reginald Hudland kind of teased that Warner Brothers would be looking to make films off of the Milestone Media characters, including Static Shock. Now, we also learned a couple months ago there were rumors that Michael B. Jordan had been meeting with Warner Brothers executives, and a lot of people assumed that they were meeting about a potential Superman role. But it looks like he will be producing a Static Shock movie for Warner Brothers, which is awesome. It's great to hear.
I would love a live-action Static Shock movie. I think that would just be amazing. The cartoon told stories from a perspective that you weren't getting from any of the other superhero cartoons. And I'm speaking just about the cartoons because I personally never read the comics, but the stories were so good. It's too bad that Michael B. Jordan, is in his 30s. Otherwise, I think he would have made a great Virgil Hawkins, like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I imagine he'll still play some kind of role in the movie, though. Maybe Virgil's father, although, he's probably too young for that. Who knows? But that brings us to our question of the week. Who would you cast as Virgil Hawkins, aka Static? Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
Speaking of casting news, apparently it looks like they've cast Ms. America in the upcoming Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness movie. Now, in the comics, Ms. America is America Chavez, who is an extra-dimensional being who has super strength, super speed, flight, and she has the ability of interdimensional travel. She creates like these star portals that she smashes through to get to another time or place.
Interesting.
Yeah, she was a big part of the Ultimates team, consisting of people like Captain Marvel and Blue Marvel, Spectrum, Black Panther, and people like that. They were the ones that kept the multiverse in check, basically. So it's totally understandable why she would be included in the Doctor Strange movie, since it appears from the name that in that movie they're going to traverse the multiverse. Now, we don't know how big of a role Ms. America will play in that movie, but looking at Xochitl Gomez, who they cast for her, looks pretty spot on. She's not a huge actress. The biggest thing that she's been in was Netflix's The Babysitter Club.
She looks pretty young.
She does, actually. Yeah, they definitely went younger with the character than I thought they were going to. Because in the comics, Ms. America is like in her late teens. She kind of looks, maybe she's like in her early 20s. But here with Xochitl Gomez, the character is going to be in her early teens, it appears. So they might be setting her up for inclusion in a Young Avengers movie, perhaps. Or they're choosing to go with a young actress for story purposes. Or they want her to grow into the role through subsequent films. But she totally looks the part, so I am excited about this news. The thing that excites me the most about the character, I think, is how her abilities will be portrayed in the movie. Like, we've seen Doctor Strange teleport through, like, sling ring portals, but to see them, like, smash through dimensional doorways is just a cooler looking effect if they decide to go that route. In the comics, Ms. America's powers are magic-based, so they might just make her like a young sorceress or something that's studying in Kamar-Taj.
That's pretty interesting. I actually didn't know anything about the character, so I didn't realize that she had ties to, like, the multiverse.
Yeah.
It makes sense why she would be in the movie. Now, they actually haven't announced that it's America Chavez, but we do know that America Chavez will be in Doctor Strange 2, so it's pretty obvious that Xochitl Gomez is the character.
Yeah, pretty obvious.
In our last bit of casting news, Sarah Shahi has been set to star opposite The Rock in the Black Adam film. She'll be playing the character of Adriana Tomaz, a university professor and freedom fighter leading a resistance in the fictional Middle Eastern country of Kahndaq, according to Humberto Gonzalez from The Wrap. Now, if you're a DC Comics fan, the name of Adriana Tomaz should ring a bell, because it's the name of Black Adam's wife, Isis. Now, the article doesn't explicitly say that she's going to play Isis, but she will be, either in this film or its sequel. If you're not familiar with Isis, she had her own Saturday morning television series back in the 70s, alongside Shazam.
Yeah, for those who may be wondering, she got her name from the Egyptian deity Isis, not from the Islamic State group.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking that's one of the reasons why Warner Brothers is probably hesitant to announce that her name is Isis, and they're probably going to stick with Adriana Tomaz. In the comics, sort of like how Shazam says Shazam to transform, she says, "I am Isis." And she becomes super strong, can fly, and has control over the elements.
We're definitely going to have to find duel matches for Isis, for Ms. America, and for Static Shock in the upcoming year or so.
Yeah, it'll be nice to have duels related to the films coming up, because like we've already done a Black Adam duel, when we pit him against Apocalypse. As for Sarah Shahi, she definitely looks the part. She looks great. She's been in a lot of television shows, but you may remember her from films such as like Bullet to the Head or Rush Hour 3. Now, of course, she's also joining Aldous Hodge as Hawkman and Noah Centineo as Atom Smasher. We still haven't received any word as to who will be playing Dr. Fate or Cyclone, who we know will be in this film. So I'm looking forward to additional casting news pretty soon.
Although we still have yet to get a new release date for this movie, ever since it was pushed back from around Christmas time of 2021.
True. I expect we'll get it like around late 2021 still, or early 2022. It looks like a lot of progress is being made with this film. Apparently, it has to come out before the next Shazam film, and we know that's coming out on June 2nd, 2023. But I think that does it for all of the news. Let's go ahead and get into our review for this episode, which is brought to you by the Hulu original series, Hellstrom.
Produced by Marvel Television and based on characters from Marvel Comics, this mature, supernatural action thriller tells the story of Damon and Anna Hellstrom, a brother and sister with special skills who track down the worst of humanity and come together to save their mother.
But the world isn't ready for a Hellstrom family reunion. Let's just say that this family has some demons. The series has a ton of twists and turns as the mystery of the Hellstrom family unravels, and Damon and Anna go on a dark path of discovery involving their enigmatic, powerful father.
This isn't your typical Marvel television series, leaning into the horror genre with a suspenseful and chilling tale that's right in time for Halloween. All 10 episodes of Hellstrom are streaming right now, only on Hulu, so be sure to check it out today.
Big thanks to Hulu for sponsoring this episode. Now let's get into our review of the brand new DC animated film, Batman: Death in the Family. Okay, so as we mentioned at the top of the episode, Batman: Death in the Family is DC's newest direct-to-video collection of animated shorts under their DC Showcase banner, just like the Superman Shazam Return of Black Adam collection we reviewed last year. Batman: Death in the Family is the main feature, and again, it's DC's very first interactive animated movie if you get the physical version of the film, like the Blu-ray. The collection contains 4 other shorts, including Sergeant Rock, Adam Strange, The Phantom Stranger, and Death, all of which are pretty obscure characters, but that's sort of the point of the DC Showcase banner, to introduce audiences to lesser-known characters that will probably otherwise never receive their own feature-length animated film. These shorts typically appear as special features with other DC animated films. Now, we'll be talking about each of the shorts in detail, starting with Batman: Death in the Family, so stop listening soon, not yet, if you haven't seen any of the shorts yet, but plan on doing so. If you want the full experience of this film, I recommend you get the physical version. I stopped buying physical discs when I got an Apple TV like 10 years ago, and this is the first time I've ever had any kind of regret about switching exclusively to digital streaming. Learn from my mistakes. If you have a disc player, get the disc, get the full experience. I tried, I promise, but I couldn't justify buying a Blu-ray player just for this film. If you're like me and exclusively stream the movies you watch, it's not the end of the world. In reality, you're only missing out on about 5 minutes of film, because luckily, for the digital version, DC included 4 versions of Batman: Death in the Family.
But that's only if you actually buy the film digitally so that you get access to the movie's special features. If you don't buy the movie and you only rent it like I did at first, then the only Batman: Death in the Family content you get is just the Under the Red Hood Reloaded video segment, which is basically just a Cliff's Notes version of Batman Under the Red Hood. And totally not worth it. Whatever you do, don't rent this movie.
Right, yeah. Repeat, do not rent this film digitally. And just to clarify, renting a film does not give you access to its special features, so you're missing out on all of the alternate versions of the Death in the Family story. Okay, so hopefully you know now what version of the film works best for you. We're going into spoiler territory now, so stop listening if you don't want to hear about the different storylines before experiencing them for yourself. Now, each version starts out with the same prologue. Going into this, I was under the impression that Death in the Family was a prequel to Under the Red Hood, the animated film we reviewed a couple episodes ago on this podcast. I was actually surprised to see how little new footage there was leading up to the moment of the Joker's warehouse bomb going off. For some reason, I thought because this was marketed specifically as a prequel, that the warehouse explosion was going to be near the end of the film, though I should have known better in hindsight because of the film's trailers. We see a young Bruce Wayne's last conversation with his father, and Bruce coming to the realization that Jason should be removed from active duty. This, of course, leads to Jason getting upset and running away, only to run into Bruce Wayne later in Bosnia as they're both tracking Ra's al Ghul and Joker separately. They decide to team up again as Batman and Robin, and while Batman races to stop Ra's al Ghul's plan, Jason disobeys Batman and investigates the warehouse that they tracked the Joker to. Now, as in Under the Red Hood, Batman races back to Jason as the Joker beats him to near death before setting off a bomb. Now, apparently, the first interactive choice audiences get to make is just before the Joker's bomb goes off, as Batman approaches the warehouse, which makes sense, because that's when you get to choose whether Jason lives or dies, just as comic book readers were able to do in the late 80s comic storyline, also named Death in the Family. As we mentioned in our Red Hood vs. Punisher duel episode, fans in the 80s hated Jason Todd as the new Robin, so DC let them vote via telephone whether they thought Jason should live or die at the hands of the Joker. So it's actually pretty cool that DC made this film their first interactive movie. Under the Red Hood is one of their most popular animated films, so allowing new fans to experience, in some way, the same decision fans in the 80s had about whether Jason lives or dies through this popular film was, I think, a genius move, and a great creative way to take advantage of current technology. Now, what's also cool about this film is that they got most of the original voice talent back for it. Bruce Greenwood returns for Batman, John DiMaggio returns for the Joker, and while Jensen Ackles didn't return for Jason Todd, the guy who did the voice of the teenage Jason did, Vincent Martella, so that was cool.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Now, there are 3 choices you can make in the interactive film about 10 minutes in. Either Jason Todd dies in the explosion, he survives the explosion on his own, or Batman saves Jason from the explosion. If you choose death for Jason Todd, just like the fans did in the 80s, you essentially get an abridged recap of Batman Under the Red Hood. And that's it, you're not presented with any more interactive choices. The recap is framed as a story Bruce Wayne is telling to Clark Kent in a diner, and it's actually pretty interesting to hear Bruce's insights, getting his inner perspective and thoughts on the story beats of Under the Red Hood. It's a very introspective and somewhat emotional approach to the story.
Yeah, it was almost like his director's commentary.
Exactly. You get a greater sense for how much regret and responsibility Bruce feels for Jason becoming corrupt. I mean, parts of it get kind of awkward when Bruce is breaking down the action scenes, like beat by beat. He's like, the sniper fled in the car, and I chased him, and I wasn't able to ID him, and then he drove into a factory. But there are other moments, like when Bruce explains the moment he learns that Ra's al Ghul wasn't responsible for corrupting Jason, or when Bruce makes the connection that he gained his son in Jason in the same location that he lost his parents. It adds a new, fascinating layer to an already great story in Under the Red Hood. That said, it's not a replacement for the feature-length film, because on its own, it leaves out a lot of context for what you're watching on screen. So because of that, I'm giving this specific version of the film 3 out of 5 stars. It was good, but not as good as the full film.
Really, you're giving it that high? Because I thought Under the Red Hood Reloaded, this rehash of Under the Red Hood, was so pointless. It was like, I don't know why they decided to go that route. They should have just re-released Under the Red Hood and included this Death in the Family section so that people could actually watch the full movie as opposed to getting this bastardization of the story.
Well, I'm giving it the star rating on the basis of it being standalone. If you've never seen Batman Under the Red Hood and you just watched this, it's not bad.
But if you have seen Under the Red Hood and you just watched this, it's horrible. I gave it 1.5 out of 5 stars.
I didn't think it was horrible because of the added insight it gave into Bruce's, mind. I actually really liked that.
I don't think there was enough insight to make it anything more than just a rehash of a story that you've already seen.
I'm a little bit more forgiving because I know that they had to include a version where Jason Todd died. And also because of moments like at the end, after Bruce's story, when Clark tells Bruce that we only come to know the true power of evil when we work to suppress it in ourselves. And that Bruce is the strongest person Clark knows, not because of the monsters he fights on the outside, but on the inside. It's a great insight into Bruce's arc in Under the Red Hood, and just a really special moment that I think warrants it a higher rating. Now, if you chose Jason Todd to survive the explosion on his own, you get another non-interactive version of the story titled Jason Todd's Rebellion. Batman brings Jason back home to Gotham to heal from his injuries, but as Jason recovers, he comes to resent Batman for not saving him and starts to view himself and all of Batman's other proteges, like Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson, as victims of Batman's poor decisions. Jason runs away from Wayne Manor, still bandaged, and becomes a violent vigilante, killing the criminals that Batman captures or fails to capture. Eventually, his actions are noticed by the League of Assassins, and Talia offers to assist his crusade against Batman and help him find the Joker, if Jason agrees to raise her and Batman's son, Damian. Jason agrees, planning to turn Damian against both of his parents, and the film ends. Now, I don't know why they would end the story there. It was weird. Jason Todd's Rebellion is my least favorite version of the storyline.
Absolutely. I thought that they were going to go deeper into that story and we find out exactly what happens when Jason raises Damien.
Right?
Which is actually a fascinating concept.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, I would love to see how this story continued. But it was so short. It's the shortest one of all the storylines. It kind of feels like the writers just kind of gave up.
Yeah, to that end, I give the Jason Todd's Rebellion story branch 2.5 stars out of 5.
Oh, I think that's generous. I thought it was just way too incomplete and unsatisfying, so I gave it 1.5 out of 5 stars.
I think maybe I bumped it up a star or so just because the premise itself was pretty interesting to me.
I could see that. Moving on to the next story version, if you choose Jason Todd to be saved by Batman, there's a surprise twist that the bomb still goes off and Batman dies in Jason's place. I did not see that coming. That was super sad and disheartening and kind of frustrating to learn that, whether it was going to be Jason Todd or Batman, one of them was going to die at the hands of the Joker. I actually think this is much more poetic.
Yeah, the consequences of everything are just so final.
Yeah, it cuts to the core. For sure. Now, when Batman dies, you then get the choice for Jason to either kill or catch the Joker. If you choose to kill him, you get the interactive Robin's Revenge storyline, where Jason Todd retires from superheroics initially until he randomly finds a similarly retired Joker in disguise at a Gotham City diner. After killing the Joker there, in plain view of everyone, Jason's confronted by the police. And then you get the choice of either having Jason surrender to the authorities, at which point he'll spend out the rest of his days in prison, enacting justice from the inside as the prison vigilante Jailbird, or you escape police custody and you become the murderous vigilante Red Robin. Which I thought was weird, because Red Robin in the comics is Tim Drake. Though I guess technically Dick Grayson was Red Robin in the Kingdom Come comic as well. I guess it's a mantle that could be shared among former Robins, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was a kind of an amalgamation between the Red Hood and Robin.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now, this version of Jason Todd is essentially the Punisher, killing criminals because one of them killed a family member of his. Eventually, he goes up against Two-Face, and Two-Face gets the upper hand and flips his coin. Viewers then get to decide whether the coin lands on heads or tails. If you select tails, Two-Face spares Jason's life, letting him live with the fact that he's a murderer, and Jason retires from crime fighting in shame. If you select heads, Two-Face decides to serve justice and kill Red Robin to protect Gotham. But before he can, a young Tim Drake shows up out of nowhere with a taser and incapacitates Two-Face. Then, Tim, pointing a gun at Jason, uses similar language to Batman's dying words to inspire Jason to not kill anymore, and this version ends with Jason taking Tim on as his sidekick, Bat-Kid.
I thought this one was pretty interesting. I'm not sure why Dick and Barbara wouldn't take Jason Todd in for his crimes in this version. Why they just let him continue being Robin and take on a protege of his own in Tim Drake. But I thought it was interesting how fate kind of seemed to intertwine the Bat family's destiny still.
Yeah, Tim was introduced into this one. Damien was introduced in another storyline. Yeah, it's interesting how it all kind of fits still, even though it's a different timeline. This is one of the more optimistic endings for Jason, one that promises the potential to redeem himself from becoming a murderer, all because Tim Drake, which is cool because Tim is my favorite Robin, and he's a good foil for Jason's hot-headedness. But overall, I didn't really care for this storyline either. Jason's change of heart was just way too abrupt, and the Deus Ex Machina they did with Tim was just a little too convenient. I give this storyline 2.5 stars out of 5.
I gave it 3 out of 5. I think I liked it just a little bit more than you did.
The final version of the story is called Red Hood's Reckoning, which is what you get when Batman dies saving Jason, and you decide that he should capture the Joker, but not kill him. To attract the Joker's attention, Jason takes up the Joker's old identity of the Red Hood and starts using joke gimmicks while taking on criminals, like bang flags that pop out of missiles. Eventually, the Joker takes notice and confronts the Red Hood, only to be defeated in a fight. It's here that the story takes an interesting twist, when it's revealed that the Joker is thrilled with Jason becoming his successor rather than Batman's, and that Jason has been unknowingly, violently killing criminals and repressing the memories. Viewers could then decide again at that moment whether or not to kill the Joker, though this is the one choice that doesn't alter the continuing story. Regardless of what you choose, Red Hood becomes a fugitive of justice. Eventually, Jason is confronted by Batman, seemingly resurrected by Talia al Ghul in a Lazarus pit, though he's suffering from severe psychological damage and is only able to say the words Zur-En-Arrh. Jason rejects an offer by Talia to join the League of Assassins, and she orders Batman to fight Jason. At that point, viewers get the final choice of this storyline, either to fight Batman to the death, in which case Batman activates a bomb that kills himself, Jason, and Talia, or you could choose for Jason to try and save Batman, in which case Jason incapacitates Batman, defeats Talia, and with Dick Grayson's help, Batman is brought to Wayne Manor, where Dick, Barbara, and Alfred work on a way to cure Batman of the effects of the Lazarus Pit, and Jason retires to heal his own broken mind.
This is by far my favorite branch storyline of the three. I thought it made a whole lot more sense thematically, and it had some genuine surprises and twists.
Yeah, I mean, if I did the interactive version, I think this is probably the route I would have gone. I really like Jason Todd as Red Hood, and the multiple twists presented here, from Batman's death and resurrection to the unreliable narrator aspect of the story, I thought was really interesting. The most interesting version of the three original storylines: Jason Todd's Rebellion, Robin's Revenge, and Red Hood's Reckoning.
It just makes sense that whether Robin died or Batman died, they would get resurrected in the Lazarus Pit. In Under the Red Hood, we see that Ra's al Ghul felt sorry for Jason Todd's death and resurrected him, so it stands to reason that Talia would try the same approach for her dead beloved.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder why that didn't happen within the Robin's Revenge story arc.
Because they needed another version of the story? I don't know.
Exactly. And we've seen Batman fight Jason Todd before in Under the Red Hood, but it felt so different when it was Jason fighting for Batman's soul, as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, when he was fighting the Zur-En-Arrh Batman?
Yeah, I thought it was a perfect mirror version of Under the Red Hood. And I thought it was almost as good as Under the Red Hood, so I gave Red Hood's Reckoning 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, interesting. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's still the highest rating of the three different storylines. I just didn't want to give it the same score as Under the Red Hood, because in my opinion, the best version still is Under the Red Hood, and we gave that 4.5 out of 5 stars. Ultimately, I'm glad that's the true version of the story. That said, it was pretty interesting to see these alternate realities for Jason Todd. I hope DC does more of these. Maybe not with alternate realities, but maybe like a Justice League movie, where we get to experience the same story from alternate viewpoints or something.
Yeah, that would be cool. In all, I really liked this experiment on behalf of DC Animation. I do wish that they didn't make some timelines have different elements just for the sake of having a different story. Like the Damian Wayne thing, like the Tim Drake thing.
Right.
You would think that there would be a little bit more congruity between the actions of other people, not influenced just by Jason Todd's decisions. But all the story chases that the film made were pretty interesting regardless.
Yeah, they all made sense in their own kind of way. Moving on to the other DC Showcase shorts, the next film in the digital film series was Sergeant Rock, which first appeared with the film Batman Hush. Honestly, I've never been a big fan of the character of Sergeant Rock, like war comics just never interested me, so this was the short I was looking forward to the least. But it ended up being my favorite of the entire collection.
What? Really?
Yeah, like tone-wise, it started off really strong, I thought, with like a very Saving Private Ryan type World War II war scene. Sergeant Rock was voiced by Carl Urban, who's just like one of the coolest actors of all time, and it's cool to see him working on a DC property. After the opening battle, we see Sergeant Rock wake up in a military infirmary, where he learns all of the other men from his unit went MIA. He's reassigned by Lieutenant Matthew Shreve to lead a new unit, who are revealed to be, wait for it, the Creature Commandos.
Oh, they actually have a name in the comics?
Yeah. If you're not familiar with the Creature Commandos, they're a military super team made of horror-based monsters, including Warren Griffith, a werewolf, Sergeant Vincent Velcro, a vampire, Private Elliot Taylor, a Frankenstein-type monster, and others, though this short just featured those 3.
Marvel has something similar called the Howling Commandos, which is a riff off of, the World War II fighting unit led by Nick Fury. The modern version of the Howling Commandos were a supernatural fighting force consisting of people like Werewolf by Night.
What year did that come out?
Probably before DC's version.
I don't know. I need to look that up real quick. I'm going to call this shit out.
They were called the all-new Howling Commandos. They came out in 2015.
Oh, really? Because the Creature Commandos came out in the 80s. What a ripoff.
Yeah, but this team was led by Agent Phil Coulson, so it was automatically better.
Better than Sergeant Rock? I don't know. Though, I mean, usually the Creature Commandos are led by Lieutenant Matthew Shreve, so I'm not sure why they actually gave command of his unit to Sergeant Rock for this film.
Has Sergeant Rock ever dealt with the supernatural in his comics before?
No, it's a war comic. And his character never went beyond World War II. He was actually killed by the last bullet shot in the war. But the Creature Commandos actually fought in World War II, and after that. But in my opinion, this shouldn't have been a Sergeant Rock film. They should have just made a Creature Commandos short. Like DC Nation, which is like DC Showcase, but it produces shorter animated shorts for Cartoon Network. They made a series of shorts featuring the Creature Commandos, and you can watch those now on the DC Universe app. They're made for laughs. Now, based on the opening to the Sergeant Rock shorts, it was a huge surprise when it took a supernatural turn. Like, I love the Creature Commandos, and I loved how this film showed each of them using their talents to take out the evil Nazi scientists that were turning Sergeant Rock's old unit into monsters. That kind of brought the whole story full circle. There was a lot of action in this, but it wasn't overly violent. I loved everything about it. Even the end, when Sergeant Rock realized that if he delivered the Nazi scientists to US troops alive like he was ordered, America would just make their own undead army. So he let the Creature Commandos feed off of them. That was such a badass ending. I totally want a live-action Creature Commandos feature film now, done in like a Grindhouse style. I would pay so much money to see that.
See, now, myself, I didn't enjoy this one as much because there was like no story. 90% of it was action, and the action was fine, but there was essentially no story. It was basically, fight these guys with these monsters. The end.
Well, the story was the mission to capture these scientists, but it had so many turns, like the introduction of the Creature Commandos, like the reveal that Sergeant Rock's old team were made into monsters. There was definitely story there. I give this one 4 out of 5 stars, though I think the only bad thing I could say about it is that the Creature Commandos themselves weren't fleshed out enough, and I wish the short was longer.
And had more story. I give it 2.5 out of 5 stars.
That's harsh, bro. That's harsh. The next animated short was Adam Strange, which was included with the release of Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. If you listen to our Adam Strange vs. Star-Lord episode, you'll know that Adam Strange was a human from Earth who was randomly teleported via a Zeta beam to the post-apocalyptic and sterile planet of Ron, where he fell in love with a woman named Alana and used advanced technology, like a jetpack and laser gun, to protect the planet and become its champion. He's a great character, and his story origin is barely touched upon in this short. In this short, Adam Strange is stranded on another planet, living in a mining colony, and waiting for a Zeta beam to transport him back to Ron. Strange is a depressed alcoholic in this movie who's struggling to calculate the time and place of the next Zeta beam transfer. He's kind of a dick to everyone there, and no one really likes him. It's revealed in flashbacks that he was teleported off of Ron during a war with the planet Thanagar. His wife, Alana, died in the war, and Adam's goal is to get back to his daughter, Aaliyah. In the mining colony, the miners accidentally uncover a race of insect-like aliens that start violently killing everyone in the town. Adam Strange puts on his jetpack, grabs his laser gun, and kills the bug aliens, allowing the colony to evacuate just before a Zeta beam conveniently appears nearby and Adam jumps into it. That's the end. Now, this was my least favorite short. I'm not even sure why it was made, honestly. Not only do we not get a good sense of who Adam Strange was, I mean, unless DC wants everyone to think he's a wrathful drunk, but during the entire short, Adam Strange's entire conflict that he can't figure out how to get back home becomes moot when his jetpack notifies him of an incoming Zeta beam and it appears nearby at the end of the film. He didn't need to do all of those calculations. All he had to do was wait. Also, that's not even how Zeta beams work. When Adam Strange gets zapped on Earth in the comics, he's bombarded with radiation, and as that radiation dissipates while he's on Ron, he simply fades back to Earth. I feel like this movie was pitched to be like the movie Aliens, just this isolated group in space that's violently slaughtered by xenomorph-type aliens. And that's sort of a cool idea, but we actually have to care about the group that's being slaughtered for it to work. Like, if we had learned that the Thanagarians used Ron's own technology to teleport an entire city population of Ron to a barren planet, then I might care. And if Adam's daughter got lost on that planet and he had to find her before the next Zeta beam arrived, then I might care. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to care for a group of people that treat the hero like nothing, and the hero doesn't even care about them. Until the last minute, apparently. Ultimately, Aliens is the wrong tone for an Adam Strange film, I feel. He's more of a fantasy adventure, like John Carter of Mars type character. This was a horrible short, and I give it 1 out of 5 stars.
Dang! I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you didn't know who the character was, you may not understand it, but if you do know who he was, you kind of understand how this is kind of like a dark chapter in his life. And I think the time that he spent trying to calculate the arrival of the next Zeta beam was purposefully done in vain. And he was just passing the time, really, out of his depression until it came back. And he decided to save as many people as he could from that colony before the Zeta beam took him away.
But they never showed that.
It's up to interpretation. And also, the action against those space aliens was pretty damn sweet. I like how they were using mining tools against them, kind of like in the Dead Space video games, to like sever their limbs and everything. Adam Strange has never been more of a badass than he was in this short movie.
I thought it was overly violent, honestly. It seemed like it was violent just for violence sake, just to fill up some screen time and like deliver some shock and awe. I didn't appreciate it. I thought it was distasteful. After Adam Strange was The Phantom Stranger, and this was the one short I was probably looking forward to the most. It was originally released with the film Superman Red Sun, which I rented, so I never got the chance to see this. In the last DC Showcase collection of animated shorts we reviewed, Superman Shazam: The Return of Black Adam, my favorite short was The Spectre, and the Phantom Stranger as a character is not too dissimilar from the Spectre. They're both these powerful mystics in DC Comics. I thought the tone and story approach of their shorts would be more similar, but they weren't. And I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, the Spectre was very Grindhouse, and this one was very Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, totally, for some reason, it totally felt like a slightly more adult version of Scooby-Doo. And that might have been intentional, but I do wish it was a little bit darker. The Phantom Stranger is almost like DC's version of the Watcher. He rarely engages in conflicts, but appears often as an omniscient guide when heroes are in need. In this short, which takes place in the 70s, the Phantom Stranger warns a young woman named Marcy against entering, unknown to her, the house of a demonic cult at the encouragement of her new hippie friends. The seductive cult leader, Seth, kills Marcy's hippie friends and is about to kill her as well before the Phantom Stranger intervenes and he and Seth fight. Seth apparently gets the upper hand, and Marcy, through her own wits, seduces Seth into getting close enough for her to rip off his magic medallion, killing him and saving herself. She drives away in the hippie's van as the Phantom Stranger looks over everything in the sky. I didn't hate this short after watching it, but I didn't love it either. It was pretty meh, in my opinion, like very middle of the road. So I'm giving it 2.5 out of 5 stars.
I think the premise was solid enough, but the character change for Marcy was a little bit abrupt, I thought. I also thought it was pretty middle of the road. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I do have to say that I really like the Phantom Stranger when he's very mysterious and in shadow and everything, but when you see him in full light with his goofy ass looking outfit, he just looks ridiculous.
Oh, like when he's in the middle of a desert road or something?
Yeah.
Now, the last short in this collection was Death, a character from Neil Gaiman's Sandman series. This was the only short I had seen before I watched this collection. I saw it when the Wonder Woman Bloodlines film was released. It's a depressing tale, but in a bittersweet kind of way, and it does a really good job of conveying Neil Gaiman's version of death. Just this sweet goth chick that you don't have to be afraid of. The story revolves around a man named Vincent Omata, a drug-addicted, struggling artist. He's haunted by these inner demons who constantly criticize him, represented by figures from his past, like his art professor, his ex-girlfriend, his father, and his former boss. Down on his luck, Vincent sees Death outside of his apartment and, not knowing who she is inspired by her. After going into his apartment and shooting up drugs, he sees Death again outside his window on the street amidst a car accident, and he helps her fend off some angry people. Going back with Vincent to his apartment, Death agrees to let him paint her, and as Vincent paints his masterpiece, his inner demons die off. When the painting is complete, Vincent realized time had stopped, and Death reveals that he had died when he shot up the drugs into his arm. Time resumes, and a lit cigarette sets his apartment on fire, burning all of his paintings and threatening to ignite his masterpiece of death. Realizing Death had been with him ever since he was a little boy, he begs her to save his painting of her before she takes him. In the aftermath, firefighters are astonished how everything burned except for a beautiful painting of a goth girl, which was drawn by Jay Lee. He's
Really?
a great artist. He's great.
Oh, God. You're not going to like my criticism because I actually loved this story. I thought it was really beautiful, somewhat relatable for people who self-criticize a lot. But the one thing that I did not like about the movie was I was expecting this like wonderful masterpiece of a painting. And what I got was like bad tattoo art by like a mediocre artist.
How freaking dare you? It's Jay freaking Lee. What is your
I don't
problem?
know, man. I did not like it. Honestly, I was so disappointed when they finally revealed the painting. I was like, are you serious? That's ass right there. In my head, I had imagined something a little bit more impressionistic and beautiful and not something that you could get as like a sticker for your notebook or something.
Damn. I don't know, man. I would get that tattoo.
Yeah, on your lower back? Because that's what it looks like. It looks like a lower back tattoo.
Dang. Did you stay for the end credits? Did you watch those? Because you could see more of Jay Lee's artwork.
Yeah, I did actually. And I thought that those paintings that were showing up were actually a lot better than what the final result was.
You wish you could do that good of a job.
No, I really don't.
It was Vincent's masterpiece. It was Vincent's, not anyone else's. That was the best he could have done.
He was just a horrible artist then.
Dang. Wow. Now, as an artist myself, I definitely identified with like the whole artist's dilemma that he was facing of never feeling satisfied with your art and struggling when people don't appreciate it nonetheless. I liked this short a lot, if only because it felt like it fit right into Neil Gaiman's Sandman universe. Like, this could have easily been a one-shot issue in that series. It was just so personal and touching and moody.
I also liked the animation style in general for this particular short. It was a little bit less clean than the other ones, a lot more moody. Like there was very little color in it at all.
Yeah, very monochromatic.
And it felt stylized.
I actually didn't really touch on the animation styles of the previous animated shorts. I really liked the animation style for this film and Sergeant Rock, and I guess Adam Strange. Not so much Phantom Stranger. That one was just a little bit too Bruce Timm. But no, yeah, Death, that was definitely the best of the bunch in terms of animation. And the voice work was great too. Like the two leads, Leonardo Nam, he's from the movie The Perfect Score, and Jamie Chung is from Sucker Punch and Big Hero 6. They were terrific. It was great. Really, this was a perfect short. There's nothing bad to say about it other than it was short. I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5.
I give it 4 stars out of 5. It would have gotten 4.5 if it wasn't for that painting.
Jeez. You do a better job. I want to see a better Death painting from you. You jerk.
All right, fine. Give me some paint.
No, you have to buy your own paint.
What? Nah, I'm not doing that then.
So overall, as a collection of all of these shorts and all the alternate storylines, when I averaged my scores as a packaged film, I give Batman Death in the Family 3 out of 5 stars, which feels right to me, because while this wasn't a bad collection, I don't think it was as good as the previous DC Showcase collection, Superman Shazam, The Return of Black Adam, which we gave 4 stars.
Yeah, I loved every single short in the Superman Shazam collection, including the Shazam story, the Green Arrow story, the Spectre story, and the Jonah Hex story. I thought those were all really well done. I don't think there was a single short here that outperformed any of those shorts, except for maybe Death. But coincidentally, when I average all of my scores up between the Batman Death and the Family arcs and the other character shorts, I get 3 out of 5 as well. So overall, that's what I give Batman Death and the Family.
So even though we felt differently about a lot of the films, we still ended up with the same overall rating for the collection as a whole.
Right. Yeah. It does feel like the proper score. Not horrible, not fantastic, just slightly better than average.
And still recommendable. Like, I would still tell people to watch this.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if they're not familiar with the characters. Maybe not the Adam Strange one, because that's not going to make them familiar with him at all. But for the other ones, definitely. But that does it for this review. Let us know what you thought about the shorts by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, to visit cufflinks.com and check out their Marvel and DC sections, and reach out to us with what you think their coolest product is for a chance to win the Iron Man Paisley tie or the Batman Silk tie. Again, you can use promo code DUEL15, DUEL15, to get 15% off anything on that site.
And just to clarify, we're going to have 2 winners of our contest, a DC winner and a Marvel winner.
Also, guys, don't forget, with Halloween coming up, there's no better time than now to check out the Hulu original series, Hellstrom, which is based off of the Marvel Comics character that you should definitely watch if you're in the Halloween spirit and looking for something new on Hulu.
We want to remind everyone again to please subscribe to our show if you haven't, or please leave us a rating or review on your platform of choice. Sharing this show on social media or in person is also a big help for us.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson, Jace Crump, John Starosky, John Speas, and Isaiah Bethune for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away.
True believers.